but I want to go ahead and get started with introductions. I'd like to introduce Isaac Kinyanjui. He has served as a visiting lecturer at Doane, has hosted Doane students. He is in Kenya. His calling is wildlife conservation, and he is fantastic. And I'd like for him to talk about the work that he does, as well as how the impact of even China is in Kenya and the presence there in terms of economic opportunities. So, all right, Isaac, thank you.
Karibu, karibu. Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Should I start, Carla? Or...
Yes, go ahead and start. Because I know electricity could be kind of sketchy. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit dark. It's a bit dark, but not like where we were yesterday. Well, my name is Isaac Kinyanjui, as you have been told. And for most of my life, since 1989, I've been a tourist guide or a natural guide. And I've gone through a lot of training. I am self-trained. I've not gone through a formal college to study wildlife or guiding or tourism. And I've picked it up in many of the places that I've worked in. Well, I started in a conservation center as a mechanic driver. And then I picked it up from there, and I learned a lot of research that was being done in Elsmere Conservation Center. And after that, I was able to work in Kongoni Game Conservancy, where we started a new conservancy, and I was key in mapping out where you find a lot of birds areas. And in that place, I was able to have a close encounter and a close understanding of proper wildlife, because we rehabilitated leopards that were killing domestic animals that were outside the reserve area. And for your information, 70% of our wildlife lives outside protected areas. So we do have a lot of wildlife living with the people, and in some cases it requires the intervention of conservationists or naturalists to be able to rescue the animals from the people. I was able to do that with the leopards, cheetahs, lions, as well as zebras and giraffes and other herbivores that were caught by traps put on the farms by the farmers to trap the animals that were coming to eat their crops. So the conflict between animals and people has always been there. And I started working in Kongoni Game Conservancy, working for wildlife, rescuing wildlife. And there were people who would, for example, catch fish as lovebirds, beautiful little birds. They are called lovebirds, fish as lovebirds. And they would sell them in a cage. And we would buy them or use our uniforms to get them and put them back in the wild. But this is an ongoing process, and now it's less than it was during my time when I was growing up in the industry. I've also worked in one of the best national parks in the country, very wild area called Tsavo East National Park. And I used to work in a camp called Galdesa Camp. Galdesa is a Sanya tribe language meaning baboon. And I was able to track wild animals like rhino, lions, elephants for clients who were involved in conservation activities. So I met a lot of people who have worked in conservation from all over the world, including a lot board members of New York Zoo. And I met them as a guide, and I was able to take them and show them around and walk with them and track down rhino, and we definitely saw one. In the 5 years I was in Tsavo East, I became popular and I was known as Isaac of the Rhino, simply because the rhinos rehabilitated in Tsavo, I was able to track and manage. Most of my walking and tracking were very successful. In a walking safari, what you do is you have a ranger who is ahead of you. In fact, he's immediately ahead of, he's behind the tracker. The tracker is ahead and then the ranger who is armed, and then the guests, then me as the guide, then the guest, then another ranger at the back. So there's a lot of briefing to be done, and how to behave when you're walking, and how not to make any noise, which in many cases people are not aware of. It requires training. But we had to go and listen to every sound, and we learn about trucks, we learn about bushes, we learn about stones and water holes, and going high up in the air, and what ate this and what ate that. And in that sense of knowing what the animal behavior and how they eat in the wild, we were able to track down rhinos. And we have been tracked by animals in return several times. And we were able to know how to be able to evade any occurrences. In several occasions, I've had to hold down the clients when we saw the rhino and they exclaimed in excitement, and we held them down and kept them quiet. And the rhino was very quiet, listening where that sound is coming from. You don't want to be chased by a rhino at all, because I've been chased by one, and it almost killed me. But fortunately, we didn't have the guest with us. We had just gone to track Joseph, this hostile rhino that was taken from Nairobi National Park and rehabilitated there because he has become so hostile and had killed other 3 rhinos. But he came and established his territory. Black rhinos are territorial. He came and established his territory close to our camp. So we were told to go and look for him, then come back for clans. And this clan was called Sioux. Sioux and his wife had come from America, and they had paid a lot of money for that rhino to be rehabilitated. So when we went there, we saw it, and it chased me, and I was almost killed. They said they don't want to see it because I was totally, my clothes were totally torn, and I was very shaky. But I had to do it again. In order for me to get back to the game, the next day I went tracking Joseph again, and I found Joseph for the clans. Now, this probably is a theory that works only with not so clever people like me. But when you have something like that that is so scary, you got to do it immediately. Otherwise, it will become a problem in your life. And I went there. I didn't even shake then. But when after the chase, and I went to bed, I was shaking and sweating. But the next morning, I got up, wore better clothes, and went on tracking again. And I found Joseph for my clients. But I had to see it from the car when I was on the ground. We've tracked lions, we've tracked so many things, and we had beautiful walks with different people from all over the world. And the walks along the river are beautiful because you walk, you sit still, and an elephant walks by you. That's how wild Tsavo was. Antelopes like Gerenuk, which is called the giraffe antelope, would come and stare at you. You are tracking it, to stare at you and wonder, what kind of person, what kind of a being is this? Because they are not used to people. Now they are, it's been many years, but by then it was very, very wild, and it became my favorite park. Now, that work did not involve driving a lot. I was stationed in a camp, and I was staying there. There was no other development within 60-kilometer radius. And so we were completely in a wild place. Then I came back to Nairobi, and I went into the normal safari businesses where you pick your guests from Nairobi destination if their destination to land was in Nairobi, you pick them in the hotel and you go for 3 nights, 4 nights, 5 nights, 6 nights, 15 nights, even 21 nights. And by doing that, I was able to now be able to put my knowledge with the guest, who in most cases wondered whether they have actually paid for me. Because a lot of the people in Nairobi were employed, and all they did was drive you, you come to a lion, and they tell you lion. For me, it is an education. It is discussing the characteristics of that wildlife. From the moment we leave Nairobi, we begin to see wildlife. So we have a lot of things to talk about. And like probably you have already established, I talk a lot. So I would go with the clans and see giraffes on the way from the city, like 40 kilometers from the city. You begin to see wild animals, and they graze with the cattle, and you see birds like raptors, and you would go and see small antelopes like dik-diks, antelopes like Thompson gazelles, impalas along the way, feeding with the livestock. And by the time you arrive at the reserve, you've actually seen so much. And because your eyes have been opened by me talking about it, now you have anticipated what is ahead of you. And in my part, by the time we are doing 60 kilometers, stopping at the viewpoint to see the Rift Valley, I would have learned Karla Cooper loves giraffes or loves elephants. And I would make sure that every time we come to an elephant, we would definitely talk about the elephant at that particular time, discussing the behavior as we watch the animal. And with that, we were able to actually, because of my knowledge, previous knowledge, we were able to see more wildlife, because many people just drive because of time and fuel consumption. For me, it was about my experience with my current guest, and make sure that by the time we are done, you are sold to feeling that you want to preserve a wildlife somewhere in the world for the future of the children. And when we talk about that particular animal, we would look at how it is behaving and tell you why and what is next to come. So in that sense, I became also popular with the photographers who came with me. And with that, I was able to take more photographers than other people, because they would, when you anticipate a behavior, you are likely going to place your photo at the right frame, at that particular behavior that it's going to do. So I went on, and by the time I was doing like 4 years in Nairobi, I met Doane College professor Betty Levitov, and she had come with students, and I was one of the convoy vehicles of 3 vehicles that were taking the students to Mara National Park. And I did what I do, and Betty Levitov was impressed. In the evening, after everybody gets back from safari, I don't just walk away. I sit with my guest. We talk about culture, governments, and what is happening in our parks, and what is the future of our parks. And we compare notes with parks like Yellowstone, or parks like other parks all over the world. If it's America, if it's England, or Europe, whatever. And while we are doing that, we bond, and we talk about what we have seen today, and tomorrow what we expect to do. There is a lot of guests left alone by others, and they have gone to do their thing, and they tell the guests the pickup time, and that's it, would have problems of demands in the morning. We haven't seen cheetah, we need to see cheetah. For me, it is about what nature gives, we take. Because one thing we are proud of in Kenya is that our game parks are in their natural state. They are not controlled by people. Actually, the people are the ones who have interfered so much in the wildlife, but they are protected, and the government has a force, just like in the army, to protect wildlife, the Kenya Wildlife Services. And in National Reserve, they are forced to have the same, so that they may have the protection. The difference between National Reserve and National Park is that the National Reserve is run half by the community and half by the government. A national park is purely run by the government under the body of Kenya Wildlife Services, which is one of the most elite group in dealing with the poachers. So they have been the most active before we have had any other war. So they are the ones who have actually had encounters with the poachers. And there are people who are well versed with wildlife and the behavior and characteristics of wild animals. So when I was in Galdesa in Savo, I became great friends with these people, and I learned so much about it. So with my knowledge from Elsomere Conservation Center, and where I was introduced to conservation activities, into Kongoni Game Conservancy, where I was used to actually mapping out a conservancy, and in Galdesa, Savo East National Park, where I was used to tracking and learning more about conservancy and the importance of actually involving oneself in one's capacity to preserving wildlife. I was able to come into Nairobi, where we had thousands and thousands of tourists, and whoever was given, I had the opportunity to go with me, came back a better person. And so I went on that, and I started my own company called Wild Connection Safaris with my buddy Paul McDougall, and who came just the last month. I went on safari with him for 29 days photographing. He's a photographer. And I started with him like 21 years ago. He was a young man. he was lost, and we were able to become good friends, and we followed up a process whereby he actually changed and he became an enthusiastic wildlife photographer. He loves wildlife and he loves Kenya. So we were able to go this year with him, and he has come up with, he's written a book, which is #1 in the Amazon. And I cannot end this talk without talking about that, Carla, because I feel proud of that book. And also, he was able to come with me and take this beautiful photograph. So if you can be able to see his book and his photographs, that is most of the work we have done with him. I think he has only come to Kenya maybe once or twice actually, with other people. And he's regretted 2 of those times. But it is important to note that when you're talking about wildlife, and you must not think you yourself as the most important thing, that the wildlife are lucky to have you. We are lucky to have the wildlife. And in Kenya, we are luckier than most because we leave our wildlife in their natural habitat. We protect the area. Although we may say we want to plant wheat and maize and everything else there, we protect the areas. And when they live with us, we are able to live in harmony. Of course, there's always going to be elements. Even in America, you have people burning forests. Even everywhere in the world, you have people killing animals and hunting them down and putting them on the wall as trophies. And so it happens, but it is very serious offense in Kenya. You will not be jailed for less than 20 years. And I think this time around, the previous president was very keen on animals, and this one also is even much keener. I think you're going to be jailed for over 30 years. And the fine is something you cannot be able to pay. So are the elephants still losing their task? Yes. Are rhinos still being hunted? Yes. Are they still being endangered? Oh, yes. Are the cheetahs endangered? Are the leopards endangered? Very much so. But the protection and the need for the community to be able to continue for the next generation, so that their children will be able to work in the industry and be able to see how it is now, is far much stronger than the people who want to destroy, which is a good thing, because now tourism is bound to be introduced as a subject in classes. So, and conservation as a subject from lower classes going upper, which is a great thing. They give degrees for conservation activities and conservation studies in our universities. They want to introduce tourism and others, because you can only do tourism up to a first degree. To master that, you must do other programs like forest conservation, forestry, or even aquatic life and things like that. Now they are going to make it a bit easy for people to be able to join university, and degrees being given for even titles like safari guides. So that is going to be good. Now, how do I say that I'm self-taught? Because I've not been to any class, but I've been to seminars. I have been able to go back to Elsamere, and where I started, and I was able to point that those photographs were taken when I was there, when I took that person to see those birds. And that hippo that almost attacked our boat, that photograph was taken when I was there with the boat, and I saved the situation. So I went there for fundamentals of ornithology, and I was able to sharpen my knowledge of ornithology. And I've also been able to go for Nairobi Wednesday walks. There's always Nairobi Wednesday walks, bird walks. And in there you learn about trees and other habitats. And you learn about reptiles and butterflies and all that kind of thing. So a guide gets to know a lot of things. And to enhance that, a lot of guides also get to know other languages. I don't know any other, I'm not very, very fluent in French or Italian or anything else, but I definitely can say hello and goodbye. But other languages, I'm very conversant within our tribes. And by the way, we are many. We are over 42 tribes, and most of us can speak at least 10. Now, in terms of my work has helped my community a lot because of giving awareness to my community about wildlife. So they are not afraid of elephants in the sense that they need to kill it. They are more afraid in the sense that they need to protect their crops, but not to kill the elephants to go away. So by the time the Kenya Wildlife Services is coming to take away the elephants from their farms, people have actually now become more lenient with that. People before would kill and even ban elephants to keep them away from their farms. But that has now stopped because people are now realizing the importance of tourism in the country, as well as within the communities. Now we have had an infrastructure of an influx of many tourism coming in from China and many other countries. Now, as you know, China it's almost like an invasion because there are very many, and they do come and they want their way. And we've had what we call marathon safaris. We want the money, the shillings brought in by the Chinese people. We need that without being told by Europe that unless you let this person go who was opposing this and that, we are not going to bring our tourists here. We are going to put a ban onto you. The feeling of not being put at ransom has actually even become easier for our presidents to let the Chinese come in investments, in tourism as well. And they come in huge numbers. And they do what we call a marathon safari. They want to see as many as possible, and they want to see them in almost all the parks. So you have 7 days, you may actually go to 7 national parks, which means you're overdriving, overspeeding, and you are only stopping for a few minutes because they would ask you, lion, because of the language barrier, and you would drive straight to that lion. And they say, okay, good. Cheetah, you'd rush to where the radios are calling, because people use radios and they were initially used for rescue purposes. If you are stuck, you'd call for help. But now people call when they have a sighting that is wonderful. Like, for example, if you see a leopard, leopards are very hard to see. You would need to call your friends so that their clients can also see that leopard. But we have rules. We're supposed to keep a distance, where you're not supposed to make noise for the animal, where you're not supposed to disturb the animal so that the animal may start hunting or walk or come to you or stand up. When we come with the Chinese people and other communities that come in large numbers, we have that problem. They need to see this animal because they have no time. They have not dedicated their time to learn more about it. So guides like me shy away from those kind of jobs because you need to talk about it. You need to show people this. We protect this animal for this purpose. Whether you know the language or not, you are likely going to communicate the importance of preserving that animal. And you are going to tell them the cheetah, as you see it, is very endangered. And you want to tell them the reason. You want to tell them why it is threatened by other wild animals, as well as people, as well as vehicles. Now, during the migration of the wildebeest, we have so many vehicles waiting for a crossing to happen, such that nature tries to adapt to it, and it is very difficult. So a lot of people don't know the respect that you need to give the migration, a corridor to be able to pass through. Or you come to a lion that is surrounded by 10, 15 vehicles. It is a shame for me when I've told the people that we don't need to get that close to that lion. We need to stay back, observe its activity, observe its characteristic and its behavior, and we're going to talk about it. And that is why we always encourage people, whenever we are doing an inquiry, what do you need to bring? Definitely bring your camera, but for sure, do not leave your binocular, because you need to be able to scan the area and learn that there is more than just the big 5. And for those who don't know the big 5, it is elephant, buffalo, lion, right? Black rhino, not all rhinos, black rhino, and leopard. Those are the big 5. They were called the big 5 for one reason, one major reason. During the colonial times, they were the hardest to hunt. when people used to hunt for trophies. They were the hardest to hunt. And they were the only ones who turn around and actually hunt you down. The buffalo does that, which is good. I do believe it is good. If you're hunting something as beautiful as these animals, you need to be hunted back. And the lions will definitely, if you wound them, they will hunt you back. They are not going to just run away. The elephant is the same. The elephant will call the rest of the world to come after you. The leopard is the same. And they are the fiercest. And so they had the best, the most important trophies. So everybody who had hunted a lion, an elephant, a buffalo, or a leopard would definitely boast to his cronies that I am a good hunter. But again, it's a shame, because I can tell you, I was trained in Savo by one guy from the tribe called the Wasanya tribe, who lived who lived on elephants. They killed an elephant simply for food. They did not know about tusks. They kept them as trophies, just so that they can decorate their homes. That's it. They didn't know that it was valuable. That was before the people who started Savo National Park back in 1948 came to say that they have saved the national park. But the hunters, when they came, they took these tribes. They captured them and made them track animals for them. And they used their shoulder to shoot their rifles at the animal. So they would send one, like my friend Kocha, he would be sent to go and track a particular elephant. And they would know through how the bush the elephant is passing, what he is eating, its footstep, which they taught me, how old it is, how big it is, the weight of that animal, and whether that animal has any problem. And trapping the wind, they would go and see the animal and then walk back to the Land Rover to tell the hunter they have seen it. And he would run in front of them as they drive along. And when they see the elephant, he would kneel down and they would use his shoulder to shoot down that elephant. Now that is not hunting for me. Hunting was Kocha, when he had to feed his family. When him and the warriors would walk and pick the weakest of the elephants, they would be able to feed the family. They were actually good in population control, in controlling the diseases within the animals. Because for them, meat for elephant, everything was eaten and was used for healing, for being hiding from the cold, covering themselves with the fat, and they would not feel cold in the night. And they would make the skin into houses, and they would make their beds with bones, like making bed frames with bones for children who would not roll over. And they would put good skin under and smear it with oil, and the kids would be covered with the skin. That's how they lived. And family would only move after maybe 6 months or so of feeding the elephant and go along the park until they find another one. And that is where they would have their home. That tribe was driven away because we had to enclose the park into a national park back in 1948. And the colonial government by then gave an order to push away the Wasanya tribe. Now, if you ask me, hunting is not about that telescopic sight so that you can hang that beautiful leopard skin on the wall with its head looking at you. But hunting is about going on a drive, seeing that leopard and leaving him in peace, or going to him every day until you are able to capture its behavior and characteristic. It's mating. It will probably come and show you where it is hidden, its baby, because it realizes as long as you're in the vehicle, you are safe. You are not a threat. Now, wildlife views us not necessarily as a nuisance, as a necessity to protecting themselves. They know as long as they're in a protected area, these people will come around and they will be protected. It is a very different behavior pattern in places like Tanzania, where they can, at a fee that is acceptable, allow you to kill certain animals. So you may go into certain areas in Tanzania and stop with a Land Rover that looks or smells like a poacher's car, and the lions will take off without any even getting them close to you. But now slowly, Tanzania has changed. With the new presidents and new things coming up, with the new government, Tanzania has changed. Now, Kenya is also different. I'm not saying that to boast about the country, but I'm telling you, I have friends who really would love to pat a lion. People who come on safari would really love to handle a leopard. People who would love to do this because it has been done. But in South Africa, their parks are enclosed. They even have tarmac for vehicles to drive around the parks. You see pictures of lions on a tarmac. You don't see that in our country. The roads are rough because that's the way it's supposed to be. You are actually find a lot of money if you drive off the main road into a place that has got no track. You'll be fine because you are destroying the environment. You allow things to happen like that, people will be driving over snakes and tortoises and even crashing over dead logs that support a lot of life. The cycle of life has to continue. And with that, when the cycle of life is finished, we also will have been gone. We cannot break the chain. When the last lion dies, the humanity will disappear. That is the truth, because it's on top of the chain, and if it's there, everything will collapse down. Believe you me, I do believe this through so many experiences and so many sightings that have not been recorded. That when I tell people about certain things, they say, wow, that's a tall story. It's a nice story. Can you tell it again? Because I can tell they cannot believe it. They need to see it. And you require so many years of being out there to sometimes see some incredible things with wildlife. Wildlife has taught me so much about my connection with my creator. It has shown me that I'm not civilized at all, that I've lost so many senses that the animals still possess. It requires one look from a male lion or a female lion to tell the kids to lay low. There was no sound, just one look. Some of you can tell me actually what it takes for a mother to tell a child right now to keep quiet because the adults are talking. Believe you me, even when the father wants to go, the mother wants to go to work, there's an outcry there and they need to keep quiet. So you getting late and getting fired because your child did not stop you there from getting. For a lion, it looks at the babies lie low. For a cheetah, the same thing. And they look at each other and say, you go that side and you go that side. Let us create a cow horn method. And the male is here, stay. The male is taught by the female, stay. And it is looked again. And if it stands, the females will lie low. Because they are communicating, you are spoiling it and you're not going to eat because he doesn't hunt. So they need to hunt to feed him in order for him to protect the pride. So he has to listen. So he keeps low. And when they are near, and already, especially in buffaloes, they already formed their cow horn formation. They will look at the lion, the main lion, and he will stand up, scaring the buffalo into knowing there's a predator. And when he does that, the buffalo will not be aware of other lions besides there. And the females, they are smaller, lighter, and agile. They will be able to bring the buffalo down. And the male will just come and be the first one to feed. Everyone waits until the father feeds. Then he lies down there and he keeps them safe because the smell of the blood will bring in the hyenas. And he keeps there, making sure no hyena is coming to eat the kids or disturb. Let me know if you have any question.
This is great, Isaac. Thank you so very much. I think one of the questions you have answered so much, especially with the business of tourism and these multinational footprints that are all over the place. And so, yeah, Aiden or Tasha, do you have anything you want to ask?
I don't. I don't really have any questions. I just thought it was really interesting of like how much you care about the animals and like how much you've learned about them over your time, even without like a formal education. It's just super cool to me how much like you care and how passionate you are.
Yeah. It gives me a lot of pride to be able to contribute a little bit about educating. If I go on safari, what I see is the opportunity to be able to talk about animals and the conservation and the importance of preserving the animals. It's not more like what do I get out of here, but it is more like I have had this opportunity to be able to go and see animals. For me, when somebody like I've been with for 20 years comes back, a better professional photographer, actually one of the best that I know, comes back and wants to capture moments and times with wildlife that we have gone through so many times. For me, it's about how well he is going to communicate to the world that there is this beautiful animal in this angle, and you can play around with the camera better than a gun. And you can play around and tell the world about it. So I've been very passionate about it. But then again, I came at a point where when my grandfather was given the land that we live in, there were still gazelles and zebras and dik-diks and antelopes and rabbits, even spring hares. And we would hunt these things down. But when we brought, my grandfather would say, whoever brings in a live one is the bravest person. And I used to do that because we were so good in tracking and getting those rabbits and dik-diks and other small antelopes for food. We would bring the live one to him and he would simply talk about it, show us, this is where it breeds from, this is how it is. Now, this is a female, you have taken it from the mother, from the children. This is a male, he needs to have a mother and father. So I want you to stay with it and look after it for a time. And within that time, you would really like that particular animal. And you'd want it to be free. But you knew it would be either be taken by someone or whatever. So we would have to eat it anyway. And as boys, when that came back to me, when I went into the wild and working with wildlife, it just showed me that that was embedded in me by my grandfather. And my grandfather didn't actually want to hunt. He taught me so much about dung beetles, so much about pigeons and doves, so much about trees and the importance of trees. So when I grew up, I simply picked it up. And I didn't know I was doing it because I thought that was a childhood thing. But when I look back at it, there was a lot of elements that came from how I was brought up. It's, for example, like you. If you go into school and you come home and you're talking about the wildlife within your home area, because there's a lot. It's a lot. For us, if a log is sitting somewhere, even home, how I teach people at home, if a log or a rock is sitting somewhere, we don't move it. And when we do it gently so that the children can see the life that is under that rock, that log, or that stone. So my kids love animals so much. And I'm so proud that they really look forward to going for any opportunity. I cannot afford a safari myself, but any opportunity that comes along, say, for example, Karla Cooper comes, she is likely going to say, bring your children along. And that for me is the best reward ever. Because over years, they have come to learn what their father does and how he does it. Because there are so many people who are not like me. So it is a passion that grows into you and you want to grow into it. So any opportunity to be able to talk about it, like this discussion, is so important to me, that a person like you can actually be able to notice something like that. So can you imagine what you can do with your education and your opportunities? So much.
And Isaac has hosted Doane students. We used to have semesters in Kenya with, as he mentioned, Dr. Betty Levitov, Dr. Brad Elder from the chemistry department. I've traveled to Kenya. We are going to go back for a lot of reasons. And Doane has $1,000 travel allowance available for every student. And it's so important if you ever get an opportunity. When Isaac first came to the United States in 2007, the first place I took him was because I was limited in my cultural communications and understanding. I knew he was a conservationist and worked with wildlife. I took him to Henry Dorley Zoo. And as soon as we went to the zoo, we were not even close to any of the things. Isaac had tears in his eyes. We had just gone into the bird habitat area. You know, as you walk inside the zoo, and as we saw the gorillas and all of that, he just broke down and cried because he said they were incarcerated. And that changed my whole idea around what we have socialized ourselves in the United States as something as capitalistic or educational. Really, to experience the animals in their natural habitat is unbelievable. And so I wanted to share that as well, that as capitalists and multinational organizations, and what he just said about not being able to afford a safari, yet he is a safari guide, speaks volumes to how we have used animals to benefit humans at their expense, and their lives mean nothing. So, yeah. Any other questions? I could preach all day on that one.
Thank you, Carla. Any other question? Any comment?
Isaac, thank you so much for taking the time. In 2009, Isaac received solar panels from Dr. Betty Levitoff and the group that traveled there. And he told me yesterday that the solar panels are now failing. And so to speak to our class today and for him to speak to our class yesterday, he had to travel to a neighbor's house. And it is 11:20 or 11:15 p.m. for him, and it's 3:12 for us. So Isaac, thank you so much for your sacrifice in giving us a global perspective, and much appreciated. So much.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased, and I would like you to meet my wife Joyce and a guest. We have a guest today. He's our new reverend in our church, and this is Joyce. Joyce,
Hi.
say hello.
Hi, Carla.
Hi, Joyce. This
Hi,
is
students.
Tasha and Aiden. Yes.
Yeah, good to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the session, the class.
It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank
you. You're welcome.
Yeah, and that's Joyce. She keeps me sane. And this is Simon, our reverend, and he's new to our parish. Reverend Carla Cooper. Okay. Dr. Reverend
Hi,
Carla.
Reverend Simon. Nice to meet you. I can't wait to see you in person.
Thank you. I'm also glad that I've met you. And I'm grateful that I also have gone through the class.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, he's also learning. So I'm going to introduce him to the world of wildlife. Yeah, so thank you so much, and really appreciate for the opportunity to be able to talk to you about. We have so much to talk about. We have so much to do, so much to learn. And when you come to Kenya, my home is your home. Karibu sana, and you are welcome anytime. Doane College knows that when they come here, they have come home.
Caribou and Hakuna Matata. Y'all have learned some Swahili.
Yes. Hakuna Matata, no problem.
Matata.
Karibu, welcome. Yeah, asante sana.
Yes.
Asante sana, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you, students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later.
It has been great. See you later.
Thank
we'll
you.
talk.
Bye-bye.